On this episode of China Uncensored, scams to watch out for while traveling in China. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your tour guide to China, Chris Chappell. You all just behave now and I won't have to use this. Okay, so China is one of the most beautiful places on Earth. I encourage you to visit just for the love of God. Don't say anything politically sensitive and you'll be fine. Well, and as long as you watch out for these scams. By the way, remember that in China, 911 is 110. So here are my top 5 scams you may encounter while in China. Number 1, an invitation to tea. This one would get me. I'm a sucker for tea, especially at the bequest of a Chinese official. So you're on a famous tourist site like Tiananmen Square in Beijing. A pretty girl comes up to you and speaks pretty good English. Now that would be my first warning. I mean, why would a pretty girl want to talk to me? And also it's weird for locals to speak English that well. So she takes you around, shows you some sights, and really becomes your friend. Then she invites you to tea. She takes you somewhere, and when the bill comes, it's about $200 American. Don't worry though, they'll take credit card. The girl, or sometimes it will be a couple, is in cahoots with the tea house, and you've just been scammed. Number 2, rickshaws. Wouldn't it just be so picturesque to ride through the streets of Beijing on a rickshaw? No. This is pretty common around Tiananmen as well. Basically, you want to be extra careful around any tourist spot or train station. So you see a rickshaw with a sign that offers a ride for 10, 20, 30 yuan. Then they take you away from the main roads and demand 300 yuan instead. Sometimes they can get even a bit threatening. Number 3, art students. Apparently in China, studying art goes hand in hand with studying English because anytime a struggling art student comes up to you, they always somehow speak perfectly good English. They'll ask you where you're from, wherever you're from is their favorite place, hit you up for some chit-chat, and then mention they just happen to have some of their work on display nearby. Basically, they take you to some rundown stand nearby where they have some scrolls, usually cheap reprints of famous works, and they try and sell you some. Or they'll offer to write your name in calligraphy, and it will be super expensive. They'll tell you after they've written it. This isn't really that bad of a scam because a reprint can still be a pretty nice painting, and it will often be cheaper than you can buy it elsewhere in the West. But again, just be quick with the dollar-yuan conversion or you might end up spending way more than it's worth. Number 4, black taxis. Again, this happens a lot around tourist sites or train stations. They'll seek you out. Basically, if someone comes up to you without a reason, you know something's wrong. And they'll offer you a ride in their taxis. They aren't real taxis. Their meters are rigged and they'll usually charge you double or even triple the rate. And if they don't even bother turning their meter on, just get out of the car. If they try to tell you it's broken, just get out of the car. Number 5, counterfeit money. Watch out for this. You'd be surprised how much of a problem this is, and it relates to most of the previous scams. So say you've fallen for one of these scams and you've given the taxi driver or the art vendor the cash and they say to you, hey, 3 of these notes are fake. Well, it doesn't matter if you got them in your home country. What you've realized is that you've turned your back on them for a moment and they've had plenty of time to swap out your real money for counterfeit bills. So do you call the police and take the time to deal with that when you probably are very tired from traveling and no one really speaks your language anyways? Yeah, you'll probably just give up and pay the taxi ride that's now become almost $100 more than it should have cost you. But now, while none of these were necessarily life-threatening scams that foreign tourists may face, some of the scams Chinese people have to deal with can be. At the beginning of July, a Chinese tour guide actually pulled a knife on the passengers in his bus and threatened to kill them, curse them out for not buying enough souvenirs. There's a lot of cursing in this video, so I won't subtitle it. There were 15 families on the bus with children too. He dragged 6 people off the bus and abandoned them in the deserted woods on the outskirts of Beijing. Now, the extreme violence in this story is a bit unusual, but scam day bus tours aren't. They usually aren't affiliated with any official tourism agency and charge cheap rates, but are in cahoots with vendors. The guides get a cut of the overpriced merchandise they're supposed to pressure the tourists into buying. So I hope you're now a little more prepared for your trip to China. You might want to check out my other episode about toilets in China so you know what to expect on that front. That really is the number 1 most important thing to know. And number 2. Now, for those who have been to China, do you have any scams to warn us about? Are they different to the scams in other places? Tell us your stories in the comment section below or on China Uncensored's Twitter or Facebook. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Chappell. I'll see you next time, and remember, be sure to buy enough souvenirs.